Good afternoon. I'm back again on the second episode of the deal on diplomacy. So, in our last video, I talked about we are going to consider functions of diplomacy. Like I said previously, but diplomacy is very wide. So, we are taking them one after the other. We don't have to rush things because you have to know how you have to know when it comes to diplomatic world. Yes. I said that diplomacy has to do with relationship with people through representation. That is the managing of international relations that was given by the Oxford, and we also talked about the general sense of diplomacy, which talks about your tactful, your skillful, and a reasonable, sensitive way of dealing with people out there. So in today's video, I really want you to note one thing which is very important, that diplomacy is the key instrument of foreign policy. Every country of the world make foreign policies, and this foreign policy should not counter the presence of diplomacy. Like I said, if you are a government student or you studied government in the past, you can remember that from the secondary school, you know that we have different types of constitution, and we have a rigid and the flexible constitution. The rigid is simply known that it cannot be amended. The A is A. There is no B. It cannot be changed. While the flexible can easily be amended when need be and if need be. So, when we talk about diplomacy, it is important to know that making your foreign policy as a nation, your policy should not be rigid. It should not be like a rigid kind of constitution. And we know that this rigid kind of constitution is mostly used during the military regime or authoritative kind of government, that is military government or dictatorship, that you cannot speak out your mind, you cannot oppose, you cannot speak against what is being written. And once it's been passed into law, from the bill to law, that is final and it cannot be amended. But foreign policy is not like that. You know why? Diplomacy being the key, the main instrument that runs foreign policy, a country's foreign policy. This foreign policy is made. You should know that it's not just about your country, your geographical location, your boundaries. Your policy goes beyond boundaries. This policy will have to work hand in hand with another country's foreign policy. As such, that is why diplomacy is the key instrument, because when need be, at some point, when you see that the foreign policy that is being made by your country is not suitable, that can rub hands or heads together with other countries' policy, then it needs to be amended, it needs to be adjusted, it needs to be worked upon so that it can fit in, it can suit the walls of diplomacy, it can suit the wall of peace, it can suit the wall of negotiation, it can suit the walls of peaceful interaction and relationship among nations. That is why in a United Nations, which is the main body that operates this diplomacy when it comes to dealing with nations' differences, you can see in our subsequent videos we're going to talk about, just like I asked in my first video, the first episode, is diplomacy really working the way it should work? So we are going to use instances where diplomacy comes in life scenario of what most of us knows what is going on, Ukraine and Russia. So these are the things that situation like this that diplomacy comes in when need be. And other countries as well, just like Iran, Iraq, Palestine, and Israel, things like that. So, is diplomacy do really doing the work that it should do? Maintaining peace among nations, negotiating, looking for a way out. Has it really done that? So those are the things we're going to consider. And we cannot just consider them without looking at the key point, which is why is diplomacy really being used in the world of international system or international relations? If diplomacy should be taken out, how will the international system look like? Will it really work effectively? Those are the questions that we need answers, and answers should be provided. And being the main or the key instrument of foreign policy, it represents the broader goals and strategies that give a state interactions with the rest of the world. That's exactly what I'm explaining. So, guys, when we talk about diplomacy, it's not something I have rush over. No, I'm going to take it step by step, episode by episode, and till we get to diplomacy in the present world in the 21st century. And you can even talk about diplomacy at the aftermath. How is diplomacy working in this new world system after the COVID-19 lockdown and things like that? Thank you, and please stay tuned for the next video.